How to Win Friends and Influence People. This video is based on key insights from the book How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Part 1. Fundamental Techniques in Handling People. Dale Carnegie starts this section with a dramatic story of a criminal, two-gun Crowley, to illustrate a key point. People rarely blame themselves, no matter how wrong they are. The author provides examples like Al Capone and Dutch Schultz, who saw themselves as public benefactors, not criminals. This highlights how deeply ingrained self-justification is in human nature. Dale Carnegie shares personal experiences and insights from figures like John Wanamaker and Warden Lewis Laws to reinforce the idea that criticism is futile and can be dangerous. Criticism puts people on the defensive, wounds their pride, and stirs up resentment. Instead, the author advocates for understanding and avoiding condemnation. Drawing from psychology, Dale Carnegie mentions B.F. Skinner's experiments, which showed that rewarding good behavior is more effective than punishing bad behavior. He also quotes Hans Selye, emphasizing that people crave approval and dread condemnation. The author provides an example of George B. Johnston, who improved employee compliance by kindly suggesting they wear hard hats instead of harshly enforcing the rule. The author uses historical examples, such as the conflict between Theodore Roosevelt and President Taft and the Teapot Dome oil scandal, to demonstrate how criticism fails to change behavior and often leads to self-justification. Taft, even amidst criticism, insisted he couldn't have acted differently, and Mrs. Fall vehemently defended her husband despite his wrongdoings. The author uses Abraham Lincoln as a model for dealing with people. Despite having ample reasons to criticize, Lincoln learned to avoid it after an early experience with a duel. During the Civil War, he refrained from harshly judging his generals, even when they made significant errors. The story of Lincoln's unmailed letter to General Meade after the Battle of Gettysburg perfectly illustrates his restraint and understanding. Dale Carnegie also shares personal anecdotes, such as his foolish letter to Richard Harding Davis, to show how easily criticism can create lasting resentment. The author encourages readers to focus on self-improvement rather than criticizing others, quoting Confucius, "Don't complain about the snow on your neighbor's roof when your own doorstep is unclean." The author also includes W. Livingston Lawrence, Father Forgets, to humanize the need to understand people, particularly family. In essence, Dale Carnegie advocates for understanding, empathy, and self-improvement over criticism, condemnation, and complaining, highlighting these as essential principles for winning friends and influencing people. In this section, Dale Carnegie emphasizes the profound impact of appreciation on human behavior. The core message is that the only way to truly influence someone is by understanding and appealing to what they want. Carnegie illustrates this with Sigmund Freud's assertion that humans are driven by the desire to be great and John Dewey's idea that the deepest urge in human nature is the desire to be important. This longing, often unmet, is a powerful motivator. Carnegie demonstrates the significance of this desire through various examples. His father's pride in exhibiting prize-winning hogs, Lincoln's pursuit of law, and even criminals craving for notoriety all stem from this fundamental need to feel important. He even points out the historical examples like George Washington's yearning for the title, His Mightiness, or Catherine, the great demanding letters addressed to Her Imperial Majesty, to show how universal this desire is. The author contrasts honest appreciation with flattery, which he deems shallow, selfish, and ultimately ineffective. He advocates for a genuine recognition of others' merits, moving beyond superficial praise to acknowledge their true worth. Charles Schwab, who earned $1 million salary, attributed his success to his ability to inspire enthusiasm through appreciation and encouragement. Carnegie shares Schwab's philosophy by praising publicly and privately, giving people the incentive to work harder by praising, but being loath to find fault. This principle extends to all aspects of life. Neglecting to appreciate a spouse, child, or employee can lead to resentment and dissatisfaction. The author shares stories like a husband who replaced criticism with roses, thus making his wife feel loved. A teacher's appreciation for Stevie Wonder's hearing led him to his destiny. These examples show the simple power of appreciation. By making an effort to recognize and value others, we can foster stronger relationships and create a more positive environment. Carnegie ends this section by urging readers to make gratitude a part of their daily lives. By leaving a trail of appreciation, we can spark friendships and leave a positive impact on those we encounter. In this section, Dale Carnegie emphasizes the importance of understanding and appealing to the other person's desires. Instead of focusing on what we want, he suggests we should talk about what others want and show them how to get it. This principle is illustrated with various examples, making it clear that influencing people requires seeing things from their perspective. One vivid example involves Lloyd George. The British Prime Minister during World War I. George attributed his political success to his ability to bait the hook to suit the fish. This means understanding what motivates people and tailoring your approach accordingly. Carnegie points out that simply talking about our own desires is childish, because everyone is primarily interested in their own wants. To further clarify this concept, Carnegie shares an anecdote about Ralph Waldo Emerson and his son trying to get a calf into a barn. They failed because they only focused on what they wanted, pushing and pulling the calf. However, an Irish housemaid succeeded by letting the calf suck her finger, appealing to its natural instinct. Carnegie asserts that every action we take is driven by a desire for something. Even charitable acts, like donating to the Red Cross, stem from a want to help or feel good about ourselves. He quotes Harry A. Overstreet, who states that action comes from our fundamental desires, and the key to persuasion is arousing an eager want in the other person. Andrew Carnegie, the great industrialist, exemplified this principle. When his sister-in-law's sons at Yale neglected to write home, he bet he could get a response without even asking. He wrote a casual letter mentioning a $5 bill, but didn't enclose it. The nephews quickly replied, eager to receive the money. Stan Novick, a participant in Carnegie's course, used this principle to convince his son Tim to attend kindergarten. Instead of forcing him, Stan and his wife created a fun finger-painting activity, arousing Tim's desire to participate. Carnegie shares his own experience negotiating rent for a ballroom. Instead of complaining about the rent increase, he presented the hotel manager with a list of advantages and disadvantages of both options, focusing on the hotel's interests. He was able to get a reduced rate because he appealed to what the hotel wanted. Henry Ford's advice is used to highlight this perspective. If there is any one secret of success, it lies in the ability to get the other person's point of view and see things from that person's angle as well as from your own. Carnegie analyzes two real-life letters to demonstrate the point. One letter from an advertising agency focuses on the company's desires, while another from a freight terminal fails to consider the recipient's perspective. A revised version of the freight terminal letter, focusing on the customer's benefits, demonstrates how to appeal to the other person's wants. Another example is that of Barbara Anderson, who desired to move to Phoenix. Her letters to a dozen banks outline the ways her experience would contribute to their bank. 11 of the banks gave her interview. He uses the example of the Shell Oil Company. Mike motivated an uncooperative manager to clean up his station by arousing a desire for modernity, resulting in increased sales for both the manager and Mike. Carnegie then provides an example of a college graduate struggling to persuade his peers to play basketball by saying, "I want to play basketball." Carnegie shares another example of a child that was underweight and refused to eat properly. By promising that the boy would be able to wallop the daylights out of the bigger kid if he would only eat the things his mother wanted him to eat, there was no longer any problem of dietetics. He also gives an example of a child that wet his bed, but was reformed with pajamas that was like the father's and his own bed. Carnegie concludes by reiterating the importance of arousing an eager want in the other person, emphasizing that this approach should benefit both parties involved. Part 2, 6 Ways to Make People Like You. Dale Carnegie starts this section by highlighting the importance of genuine interest in others as a fundamental principle for making friends. He illustrates this with the example of a dog, explaining that its affection is unconditional. The author shares a personal anecdote about his childhood dog, Tippy, to emphasize how genuine interest can forge strong connections. Tippy's excitement to greet him showed how affection can create companionship. Dale stresses that becoming genuinely interested in others forges stronger connections than trying to get them interested in you. Dale emphasizes that people are primarily interested in themselves, referencing a study by the New York Telephone Company that revealed the frequent use of I in conversations. He highlights that true friendships are built on mutual interest, not self-promotion. Dale Carnegie cites Alfred Adler, who stated that individuals who lack interest in others face difficulties and cause harm. He also shares an anecdote from a magazine editor who said that authors must like people for their stories to resonate with readers, thus reiterating that genuine interest in others is essential for success in various fields. He recounts the story of magician Howard Thurston, who attributed his success to his ability to connect with his audience and his genuine love for them. Also, George Dyke, who reinvented himself in retirement by pursuing his interest in music and connecting with musicians, shows that genuine interest can lead to a fulfilling life, even in later years. Dale points out that Theodore Roosevelt's popularity stemmed from his sincere care for others, including his servants. The anecdote about Roosevelt calling his valet's wife to point out a bobwhite illustrates his thoughtfulness. Another example shows Roosevelt's visit to the White House, where he greeted all the staff, emphasizing his equal respect and interest in everyone. Edward M. Sykes, Jr., a sales representative, retained an account because he showed genuine interest in the store's soda clerk and sales clerk. Because of the simple gesture to say hello to the clerks, the owner was impressed. The owner realized that Sykes deserved his business, highlighting that being genuinely interested in others is essential for any person in any setting. Dale shows from personal experience with examples of how he persuaded busy and distinguished authors and prominent figures to speak to his students, highlighting that people appreciate those who admire them and show genuine interest. Also, he shares the story of the German Kaiser, who was touched by a little boy's admiration and kindness during World War I. This led to a significant turn of events in the Kaiser's life. Similarly, the Duke of Windsor's efforts to learn Spanish endeared him to the people of South America. He shares practical tips, such as remembering birthdays and greeting people with enthusiasm. Madeline Rosedale's letter about a teller's concern for her mother showed the impact of showing genuine care. Charles R. Walters secured crucial information for a confidential report by showing interest in the president's son's stamp collection. C.M. Naffel, Jr., increased his business prospects by seeking help from an executive, showcasing the power of genuine interest in resolving conflicts and building relationships. Dale concludes this section by mentioning a quote from Publilius Syrus, an old Roman poet. "We are interested in others when they are interested in us." He emphasizes that a show of interest must be sincere and mutually beneficial. Martin Ginsburg's story illustrates how a nurse's kindness on Thanksgiving Day provided comfort. Dale concludes this chapter by emphasizing the importance of genuine interest in others for building friendships, helping others, and achieving personal growth. In this section, Dale Carnegie emphasizes the profound impact of a smile on our interactions and relationships. The central theme revolves around how a genuine smile can significantly enhance one's ability to win friends and influence people. Carnegie illustrates this point with various anecdotes and practical advice, highlighting that a smile is more than just a facial expression. It's a powerful tool for creating positive connections. One compelling example is the story of Charles Schwab, whose smile was purportedly worth $1 million. This anecdote underscores the idea that personal charm and the ability to make people like you are crucial for success, and a captivating smile is a key component of that charm. Similarly, the story of the veterinarian's waiting room demonstrates how a simple smile from a baby can transform a tense and boring atmosphere into a pleasant and enjoyable one. This illustrates the innate human response to a smile, which naturally elicits positive feelings and encourages interaction. Carnegie also warns against insincere smiles, emphasizing that people can easily recognize a fake grin. He advocates for a real, heartwarming smile that comes from within, suggesting that such a smile has tangible value in the marketplace and in personal relationships. Professor James V. McConnell's assertion that people who smile manage, teach, and sell more effectively further reinforces this point, highlighting the practical benefits of smiling in various professional contexts. The author shares the transformative experience of William B. Steinhardt, a stockbroker who initially neglected to smile at his wife. By consciously making an effort to smile and greet her warmly, Steinhardt brought more happiness into his home and improved his relationships with colleagues and acquaintances. This story serves as a powerful testament to the ripple effect of a simple smile, demonstrating how it can positively impact both personal and professional life. Furthermore, Carnegie addresses the common excuse that one doesn't feel like smiling. He encourages readers to force a smile, even when they don't feel like it, and to act as if they were already happy. This advice is rooted in the psychological principle that action and feeling go together, and by regulating our actions, we can indirectly influence our feelings. He reminds us that happiness depends on inner conditions, not outward circumstances, and that controlling our thoughts is key to finding happiness. Dale Carnegie shares Elbert Hubbard's encouragement of good cheer and positive thinking. These actions prepare ourselves to greet our friends with a smile. The story also mentions the ancient Chinese proverb, "A man without a smiling face must not open a shop," reinforces the idea that a smile is essential for success in business and in life. Your smile brightens the lives of all who see it. In conclusion, this section underscores the transformative power of a genuine smile in winning friends and influencing people. Through various anecdotes and practical advice, Carnegie illustrates how a smile can create positive connections, improve relationships, and enhance one's overall success and happiness. The emphasis is not just on the act of smiling, but on cultivating a positive mental attitude that radiates through a sincere and heartfelt expression. In this section, Dale Carnegie emphasizes the profound impact of remembering and using people's names as a fundamental principle for building strong relationships. The author illustrates this point through various anecdotes, highlighting how this simple act can significantly influence others. One compelling example is the story of Jim Farley, who rose from humble beginnings to become a prominent political figure. Dale Carnegie attributes Farley's success to his exceptional ability to remember names. Farley made it a point to learn about the families, businesses, and political views of the people he met. By recalling these details in subsequent encounters, he created a lasting impression and cultivated a loyal following. Dale Carnegie further demonstrates the power of names through the story of Andrew Carnegie, the Steel King. Despite lacking technical expertise in steel manufacturing, Andrew Carnegie excelled at handling people. He understood the importance individuals place on their own names and used this knowledge to foster cooperation. For instance, he named a steel mill the Edgar Thomson Steel Works, after the president of the Pennsylvania Railroad, a strategic move that secured a major business deal. The author also shares an anecdote about a TWA flight attendant named Karen Kirsch, who made an effort to learn and use passengers' names during flights. This personalized approach led to numerous compliments and enhanced customer loyalty, demonstrating the positive impact of remembering names in a service-oriented industry. Moreover, Dale Carnegie highlights how even prominent figures like Franklin D. Roosevelt recognize the significance of names. Despite his demanding schedule, Roosevelt made a point of remembering and using the names of people he encountered, including mechanics and White House staff. This simple gesture made people feel valued and appreciated, fostering goodwill and strengthening relationships. Dale Carnegie also illustrates the negative consequences of forgetting or misspelling names. He recounts an incident where the manager of an American bank in Paris expressed outrage because his name had been misspelled in a form letter. This example underscores the importance of accuracy and attention to detail when addressing others. The author also mentions the story of Seed Levy, who made a special effort to pronounce a customer's difficult name correctly. This act of respect and consideration deeply moved the customer, highlighting the power of acknowledging and honoring someone's identity. In conclusion, this section emphasizes the importance of remembering and using people's names as a simple yet powerful tool for building rapport, fostering goodwill, and influencing others. Dale Carnegie encourages readers to make a conscious effort to learn and recall names, as this seemingly small act can have a significant impact on personal and professional relationships. Dale Carnegie once attended a bridge party where he met a woman who, upon learning of his travels with Lowell Thomas, eagerly asked him to share his experiences. However, when Dale Carnegie turned the focus to her recent trip to Africa, she spoke for 45 minutes without once inquiring about his adventures. This highlighted a common human trait. People often prefer to talk about themselves and seek an interested listener to validate their experiences. At a dinner party, Dale Carnegie encountered a botanist, and despite being surrounded by other guests, he spent hours listening intently to the botanist's stories about exotic plants and experiments. Although Dale Carnegie knew little about botany, his genuine interest and attentive listening made a lasting impression. The botanist later praised Dale Carnegie as a stimulating and interesting conversationalist, demonstrating that being a good listener is often more appreciated than being a skilled talker. Former Harvard President Charles W. Eliot emphasized the importance of exclusive attention in business interactions, stating that nothing is as flattering as giving someone your undivided focus. Eliot himself was a master of this art, making people feel heard and understood. Dale Carnegie notes that department stores often overlook this principle by hiring clerks who interrupt and irritate customers, potentially driving them away. One example cited a store in Chicago almost losing a valuable customer due to a sales clerk's refusal to listen to her complaint about damaged merchandise. Listening is equally crucial in personal relationships. Millie Esposito's son, Robert, expressed his appreciation for her love, noting that she always stops whatever she is doing to listen to him. This simple act of attentiveness strengthened their bond and made him feel valued. Even difficult individuals, such as chronic complainers, can be subdued by a patient and sympathetic listener. The New York Telephone Company successfully resolved a dispute with an angry customer by sending a representative who listened to his grievances for hours, ultimately turning him into a member of a customer advocacy group. Julian F. Detmer, founder of the Detmer Woolen Company, once faced an angry customer who refused to pay a bill and threatened to stop doing business with the company. Instead of arguing, Detmer listened patiently and thanked the customer for bringing the issue to his attention. This unexpected response softened the customer's mood, leading him to place a larger order and remain a loyal client for years to come. Edward Bach, a poor Dutch immigrant who rose to become a successful magazine editor, attributed his success to the principle of being a good listener. He corresponded with famous people, asking them about their lives and experiences, which opened doors and shaped his future. Journalist Isaac F. Marcosson observed that many people fail to make a favorable impression because they are too preoccupied with their own thoughts and neglect to listen attentively. Even during the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln sought out a friend not for advice, but for a listening ear to unburden himself. Similarly, Sigmund Freud was known for his exceptional ability to listen with concentrated attention, making people feel truly heard and understood. Dale Carnegie concludes this section by offering a recipe for being disliked. Never listen to anyone for long and incessantly talk about yourself. Instead, he advises aspiring conversationalists to be attentive listeners, ask engaging questions, and encourage others to talk about themselves and their accomplishments. He emphasizes that people are far more interested in themselves and their own problems than they are in you. a crucial point to remember when engaging in conversation. In this section, Dale Carnegie emphasizes the profound impact of engaging with others by focusing on their interests. This principle, central to fostering meaningful connections, is illustrated through various anecdotes, each highlighting how understanding and addressing another person's passions can lead to remarkable outcomes. Theodore Roosevelt, a master of human relations, exemplified this principle by preparing meticulously for guests, delving into subjects that resonated with them. This approach ensured that every visitor felt understood and valued, regardless of their background. Similarly, William Lyon Phelps learned early in life that genuine interest in another person's passions is a mark of a true gentleman. He recounted an experience from his childhood when a visitor captivated him by discussing boats, a topic of great interest to the young Phelps at the time. Phelps' aunt revealed that the visitor had no personal interest in boats, but engaged in the conversation solely to connect with Phelps on a personal level. Edward L. Chalif's experience further demonstrates the power of this principle. When seeking a donation for a Boy Scout jamboree, Chalif discovered the corporate president's fascination with a framed $1 million check. Instead of immediately pitching his cause, Chalif expressed genuine admiration for the check and engaged the president in a conversation about it. As a result, the president not only granted Chalif's request but exceeded it, sending multiple boys to Europe and providing additional support. Henry G. Duvernoy's persistence in securing a business deal underscores the transformative potential of focusing on others' interests. After 4 years of unsuccessful attempts to sell bread to a hotel, Duvernoy learned about the manager's deep involvement with the Hotel Greeters of America. By shifting his focus to this passion, Duvernoy quickly gained the manager's favor, leading to a successful business relationship. Edward E. Harriman's approach to securing employment highlights how identifying and appealing to a potential employer's interests can open doors to opportunities. By researching R.J. Funkhouser's ambition for wealth and power, Harriman tailored his approach to demonstrate how he could contribute to Funkhouser's financial success. This strategy led to immediate employment and a long-lasting, prosperous relationship. These stories collectively illustrate that talking in terms of the other person's interests is the royal road to their heart and yields significant benefits for both parties involved. By genuinely understanding and addressing what matters most to others, one can foster meaningful connections, build strong relationships, and achieve remarkable success in various aspects of life. Howard Z. Herzig's sentiment encapsulates the enriching nature of this principle, emphasizing that engaging with others' interests not only brings personal rewards, but also broadens one's own horizons. In this section, Dale Carnegie emphasizes the profound impact of making others feel important. The core principle revolves around genuinely appreciating and acknowledging the value of those around us, a concept echoed across centuries by philosophers and religious leaders alike, encapsulated in the Golden Rule. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. Carnegie illustrates this with a personal anecdote of a postal clerk who appeared jaded by his routine work. Instead of focusing on his own needs, Dale Carnegie chose to admire something about the clerk, his hair, which led to a pleasant conversation and a transformed demeanor in the clerk. This underscores the idea that even a small, sincere compliment can significantly uplift someone's spirits. The author cautions against selfish motives in offering appreciation. If our intention is solely to gain something in return, our efforts will likely fail. True appreciation stems from a genuine desire to make others feel good, creating a positive and lasting impact. The desire to feel important is a fundamental human need, distinguishing us from animals and driving civilization itself. People crave sincere appreciation, not insincere flattery. When we provide this appreciation, we foster goodwill and strengthen relationships. The author shares a story from David G. Smith, who resolved a conflict between two elderly ladies at a charity concert by giving each a sense of responsibility and importance, resulting in a harmonious and enjoyable evening for everyone involved. Small courtesies, such as using phrases like, "I'm sorry to trouble you," and "thank you," can smooth daily interactions and reflect good manners. The story of Hall Caine, who rose from humble beginnings to literary fame by expressing admiration for Dante Gabriel Rossetti, further exemplifies the power of appreciation. Carnegie narrates another story about Ronald J. Rowland and a shy student named Chris who was invited to join the advanced class. The boost in self-confidence transformed the boy. Mr. Rowland put up a sign, reading, "You are important," in the classroom, to remind himself that each student is equally important. Business scenarios further highlight this principle. An attorney who admired an elderly woman's home and treasures was unexpectedly gifted a classic Packard car, showcasing how recognition can unlock profound gratitude. Similarly, a landscaper who complimented a judge's dogs was rewarded with a valuable puppy. Even George Eastman, despite his immense success, valued recognition, as demonstrated by James Adamson's success in securing a large order by genuinely admiring Eastman's office and listening to his stories. Claude Marais, a restaurant owner, prevented a valued employee from resigning by expressing her importance to him and the restaurant. This reinforces the idea that recognizing and appreciating employees can foster loyalty and improve performance. In essence, making others feel important through sincere appreciation is a powerful tool for building relationships, fostering goodwill, and creating a positive impact in both personal and professional spheres. The key is to be genuine, specific, and focused on the other person's strengths and achievements. By doing so, we not only uplift others, but also enrich our own lives. Part 3: How to win people to your way of thinking. In this section, Dale Carnegie stresses the importance of avoiding arguments and showing respect for others' opinions as key principles in winning friends and influencing people. The author illustrates these points through a series of engaging anecdotes and practical advice. Carnegie recounts a personal experience where he corrected someone at a dinner party, only to be subtly rebuked by a friend who emphasized the importance of letting someone save face. This taught Dale Carnegie a valuable lesson about the futility of arguments and the significance of preserving another person's self-esteem. The author elaborates on the downsides of arguing, pointing out that it rarely changes people's minds and often leaves both parties more entrenched in their positions. He shares the story of Patrick J. O'Hare, a truck salesman who transformed his approach by agreeing with potential customers, which disarmed them and opened the door for productive conversations. Dale Carnegie also quotes Benjamin Franklin, who wisely noted that arguments may lead to victory, but at the cost of goodwill. He further illustrates this point with the anecdote of Frederick S. Parsons, who resolved a dispute with a tax inspector by showing appreciation and avoiding confrontation, ultimately leading to a favorable outcome. To prevent disagreements from escalating into arguments, Dale Carnegie suggests welcoming disagreements, controlling one's temper, listening first, seeking areas of agreement, being honest, promising to consider others' ideas, thanking opponents, and postponing action for thoughtful consideration. The section underscores the importance of admitting one's own fallibility. Dale Carnegie quotes Socrates and shares personal experiences to show how acknowledging "I may be wrong" can disarm others and foster a more collaborative environment. He also cites the example of Harold Rienke, a car dealer who resolved customer complaints by admitting his dealership's mistakes. The author highlights the counterproductive nature of directly telling someone they are wrong. The author illustrates this through the story of a lawyer who alienated a Supreme Court justice by correcting him. He quotes James Harvey Robinson, who explains that people resist having their beliefs challenged due to the threat to their self-esteem. Carl Rogers's insight on understanding others is presented, emphasizing the need to comprehend the meaning of a statement to the other person, rather than immediately judging it. The author also shares a personal anecdote about receiving criticism for a purchase, demonstrating how defensiveness arises when one's judgment is questioned. The author emphasizes the power of diplomacy and tact, referring to the examples of Lincoln, General Robert E. Lee, and even Jesus, who all advocated for peaceful and respectful communication. He also brings up Ben Franklin's transformation from an argumentative youth into a diplomatic leader, highlighting the effectiveness of avoiding direct contradiction. Dale Carnegie shares the story of Catherine A. Allred, who successfully implemented a new incentive system at her company by soliciting input from her colleagues and allowing them to develop the system themselves. He also recounts R.V. Crowley's experience as a lumber salesman who saved his company money and preserved goodwill by refraining from telling lumber inspectors they were wrong. In closing, the author reinforces the importance of respecting others' opinions and avoiding direct confrontation. By applying these principles, the author contends that people can foster more harmonious relationships and achieve greater success in their personal and professional lives. In this section, Dale Carnegie explores fundamental principles for building relationships and influencing people, illustrating them with compelling anecdotes. One key idea is the power of admitting when you're wrong. Instead of defending yourself, acknowledging your mistakes quickly and enthusiastically can disarm the other person and foster forgiveness. Carnegie shares a personal experience where he was caught by a policeman for letting his dog run without a leash. By immediately admitting his guilt, he diffused the situation and earned the officer's leniency. Another core concept is the importance of beginning interactions in a friendly way. Starting with goodwill and appreciation can open doors to understanding and cooperation. Carnegie cites the example of John D. Rockefeller Jr., who successfully addressed striking miners by expressing friendship and common interests. This approach calmed tensions and facilitated a resolution, whereas confrontation would likely have escalated the conflict. Carnegie emphasizes that these principles are not about manipulation, but about genuine understanding and respect. When Bruce Harvey mistakenly overpaid an employee, he admitted the error to his boss, even though he knew it would lead to criticism. By taking responsibility, he earned his boss's respect and resolved the issue effectively. This honesty and willingness to own mistakes are vital for building trust and maintaining positive relationships. The author also illustrates how friendliness can lead to unexpected positive outcomes. Robert F. Black, president of the White Motor Company, responded to a strike by praising the workers' peaceful conduct and providing them with recreational activities. This unconventional approach fostered goodwill, leading to a compromise settlement without bitterness. Throughout this section, Carnegie reinforces the idea that gentleness, friendliness, and honesty are powerful tools for influencing people. The stories demonstrate that by admitting our mistakes and approaching others with kindness, we can resolve conflicts, build stronger relationships, and achieve our goals more effectively. In this section, Dale Carnegie explores the art of effective communication and persuasion through two key principles: gaining a yes response and encouraging others to talk about themselves. These principles are illustrated with compelling anecdotes that highlight their practical application in various settings, from business negotiations to personal relationships. The first principle emphasizes the power of agreement. Carnegie underscores the importance of starting conversations by focusing on points of common ground. By getting the other person to say yes early on, you set a positive tone and create a receptive atmosphere. This approach is rooted in psychology, as a no response can create resistance and defensiveness. James Eberson, a bank teller, exemplifies this principle by focusing on the customer's needs and gaining his agreement on minor points before addressing more sensitive issues. Similarly, Joseph Allison, a sales representative, skillfully used a series of yes questions to address a client's concerns about a product, ultimately saving a significant sale. The story of Eddie Snow demonstrates how the yes technique can be applied to customer service. By framing the purchase of a bow as a cost-saving alternative to renting, the shop owner secured a sale and gained a loyal customer. Carnegie draws a parallel to Socrates, who masterfully used questions to guide his opponents to a conclusion they initially opposed, underscoring the effectiveness of this approach. Dale Carnegie suggests that instead of directly telling someone they are wrong, it's more effective to ask gentle questions that lead them to a yes, yes response. The second principle revolves around encouraging others to talk about themselves. People are naturally more interested in their own experiences and achievements than in those of others. By actively listening and showing genuine interest, you can build rapport and foster goodwill. The story of the sales representative who lost his voice illustrates this point perfectly. His silence allowed the client to advocate for his product, resulting in a major sale. Barbara Wilson's experience with her daughter highlights the importance of listening in personal relationships. By ceasing her constant lecturing and allowing her daughter to express her feelings, she was able to rebuild their connection. Charles Cubeles secured a job by showing interest in his prospective employer's accomplishments, while Roy Bradley hired an exceptional representative by simply letting him talk himself into the position. Dale Carnegie concludes this section by emphasizing that even friends prefer to talk about their own achievements rather than listen to us boast. The story of Henrietta, the placement counselor, illustrates how shifting the focus from self-promotion to genuine interest in others can lead to improved relationships and greater popularity. By letting others excel and encouraging them to share their stories, you create a positive and supportive environment. In essence, Dale Carnegie teaches the value of empathy, active listening, and strategic communication as cornerstones of building strong relationships and influencing others positively. Dale Carnegie begins by emphasizing the importance of allowing others to feel that ideas are their own. People naturally have more faith in ideas they discover themselves rather than those imposed upon them. For example, Adolf Seltz, a sales manager, revitalized his discouraged team by asking for their input and expectations, which made them feel valued and motivated. This approach led to a significant increase in sales, as his team felt they were part of a moral bargain. The author illustrates this point with the story of Eugene Wesson, who struggled to sell sketches until he started asking for the buyer's input. By incorporating the buyer's ideas into the designs, Wesson made the buyer feel like a creator, leading to numerous orders. Dale Carnegie argues that this principle extends beyond business into family life, where letting family members believe a decision was their idea can create harmony. Paul M. Davis facilitated a family vacation by subtly guiding his daughter to express interest in the historical sites he wanted to visit, thus making the eventual decision feel mutual. The author uses the example of an X-ray manufacturer who sought a doctor's advice on new equipment. By making the doctor feel his opinion was valued, the manufacturer indirectly convinced him of the equipment's superiority, leading to a purchase. Similarly, Colonel Edward M. House influenced President Woodrow Wilson by planting ideas in his mind and allowing Wilson to adopt them as his own. Dale Carnegie uses the wisdom of Lao Tzu to reinforce this concept, suggesting that leaders should place themselves below others to effectively guide them. The first principle outlined is to let the other person feel that the idea is theirs. Dale Carnegie also underscores the significance of understanding other people's perspectives. Instead of condemning others, one should try to understand their reasons for their actions. This involves honestly trying to put oneself in their shoes. He refers to Kenneth M. Good's insight that everyone is primarily interested in their own affairs, and success in relationships hinges on grasping the other person's viewpoint. Sam Douglas improved his relationship with his wife by appreciating her love for gardening, even though he didn't initially understand it. The author quotes Dr. Gerald S. Nirenberg, who emphasized that cooperativeness in conversation comes from valuing the other person's ideas and feelings. Dale Carnegie shares a personal anecdote about dealing with youngsters who started fires in a park. Initially, he used authority to order them to put out the fires, which resulted in resentment. Over time, he learned to approach them with understanding, explaining the dangers of the fires and appealing to their sense of responsibility. This approach fostered cooperation instead of resentment. Elizabeth Novick successfully negotiated a car payment extension by empathizing with the account handler's challenges and listening to his troubles. Finally, Dale Carnegie encourages readers to consider the other person's viewpoint before taking any action, emphasizing Dean Donham's advice to thoroughly understand the other person's motives before an interaction. Dale Carnegie believed that understanding another person's perspective is crucial for success in interpersonal interactions. Dale Carnegie would rather spend hours understanding someone before meeting them, to anticipate their reactions and tailor his approach. This section emphasizes the power of empathy and seeing things from another's point of view as a cornerstone of building relationships. The author introduces a powerful phrase, "I don't blame you one iota for feeling as you do. If I were you, I would undoubtedly feel just as you do." This expression can diffuse arguments and foster goodwill by acknowledging the other person's feelings as valid. Everyone's behavior is shaped by their unique circumstances and experiences. Instead of judging, Dale Carnegie encourages understanding and sympathy for others, recognizing that, given the same conditions, anyone might act similarly. Dale Carnegie illustrates this with a personal anecdote about mistakenly placing Louisa May Alcott's home in New Hampshire instead of Massachusetts during a broadcast. Instead of reacting defensively to the angry letters he received, he empathized with the writers, particularly one woman who was deeply offended. By calling her and apologizing, Dale Carnegie transformed her hostility into friendship, demonstrating the power of sympathy over confrontation. Dale Carnegie also cites President Taft's experience in dealing with a disappointed mother seeking a position for her son. Taft's initial impulse was to respond harshly, but instead, he wrote a polite letter expressing understanding and explaining his decision. This approach softened the mother's anger, highlighting how sympathy can neutralize negative emotions. Further examples include Jay Mangum, who successfully negotiated an extended escalator shutdown by acknowledging the hotel manager's concerns about inconveniencing guests. Similarly, piano teacher Joyce Norris persuaded a student to cut her long fingernails by empathizing with her attachment to them and framing the decision as a sacrifice for her musical development. These stories emphasize the importance of recognizing and validating the other person's perspective. Impresario Saul Hurok's handling of the temperamental basso Fedor Chaliapin exemplifies this approach. By consistently sympathizing with Chaliapin's anxieties, Hurok managed to get him on stage despite his constant complaints. Dale Carnegie quotes Dr. Arthur I. Gates, who observes that sympathy is a universal craving. People naturally seek it, whether by displaying injuries or sharing misfortunes. Therefore, sympathizing with others' ideas and desires is a powerful way to influence them and win them over. In this section, Dale Carnegie presents compelling strategies from How to Win Friends and Influence People, emphasizing appealing to nobler motives and dramatizing ideas. Carnegie illustrates that everyone, regardless of their background, holds a high regard for themselves and aspires to be seen as noble and unselfish. Appealing to these nobler motives can be a powerful tool in influencing others. For instance, Hamilton J. Farrell persuaded a disgruntled tenant to stay by appealing to the tenant's sense of honor and word, rather than resorting to legal threats. Similarly, figures like Lord Northcliffe and John D. Rockefeller, Jr. influenced others by appealing to their respect for motherhood and the well-being of children, respectively. These examples underscore that highlighting the positive and ethical implications of a desired action can be more effective than relying on demands or coercion. The author reinforces this point with the story of James L. Thomas, who successfully collected overdue bills by appealing to customers' sense of fairness and honesty. Instead of directly confronting them about their overdue payments, Thomas empathized with their perspective, acknowledged potential mishandling by the company, and appealed to their integrity to adjust the bills themselves. This approach not only resolved the immediate issue, but also fostered goodwill, leading to future business opportunities. These instances highlight the practical application of appealing to nobler motives in various scenarios, from business negotiations to personal interactions. Beyond appealing to nobler motives, The author stresses the importance of dramatizing ideas to capture attention and make a lasting impact. He argues that merely stating facts is insufficient. One must make the truth vivid, interesting, and dramatic. The Philadelphia Evening Bulletin's response to a whispering campaign exemplifies this principle. Instead of simply stating that their newspaper contained ample news, they published a book showcasing all the reading material from a single day, creating a tangible and impressive demonstration. He further illustrates the power of dramatization through examples such as window displays with live rats, television commercials that visually demonstrate product benefits, and a salesman who threw pennies on the floor to emphasize a grocer's losses due to outdated cash registers. These examples emphasize that dramatization can be applied in various contexts to make ideas more memorable and persuasive. The author shares an anecdote about James B. Boynton, who initially failed to impress a client with a market report until he dramatically presented his findings by dumping 32 jars of cold cream on the client's desk, each tagged with key information. This unconventional approach captured the client's attention, sparked interest, and led to a successful discussion. These examples highlight the transformative effect of dramatization, turning mundane presentations into engaging experiences. Through these stories and principles, Dale Carnegie emphasizes that appealing to the nobler motives and dramatizing your ideas are essential tools for effective communication, influence, and building positive relationships in both personal and professional settings. Charles Schwab had a mill manager struggling to meet the production quota. The manager had tried everything, coaxing, pushing, swearing, and threatening, but nothing worked. Schwab discovered a way to motivate the workers by creating a sense of competition. He simply wrote the number of heats the day shift had produced on the floor. This spurred the night shift to beat that number, and the day shift, in turn, worked even harder to surpass them. This friendly rivalry dramatically increased the mill's overall output. As Schwab himself put it, the key to getting things done is to stimulate competition, not for monetary gain, but for the desire to excel. This desire to excel and the power of a challenge is further illustrated by the story of Theodore Roosevelt. When Roosevelt was nominated for governor of New York, his opponents challenged his residency. Roosevelt, initially hesitant, considered withdrawing. However, Thomas Collier Platt challenged his courage, asking if the hero of San Juan Hill was a coward. This challenge motivated Roosevelt to stay in the race, ultimately changing his life and the course of American history. Another example is when Al Smith needed a warden for Sing Sing, a notorious penitentiary plagued by scandals. He offered the job to Louis E. Laws, who was apprehensive due to the prison's dangerous reputation and political instability. Smith, sensing Laws' hesitation, acknowledged the difficulty of the position, stating it would take a big person to handle it. This challenge inspired Laws to take the job, where he became a renowned warden and prison reformer. Harvey S. Firestone, founder of Firestone Tire and Rubber Company, believed that more than money to gather or maintain good people, it was the game itself. Similarly, Frederick Herzberg found that the most motivating factor for workers was the work itself. When work is engaging and interesting, people are more motivated to excel and do a good job. Dale Carnegie discusses the importance of challenges in motivating people. The author highlights that people love the opportunity for self-expression, to prove their worth, to excel, and to win. This desire for a feeling of importance is a fundamental human drive. The author concludes this section by stating the importance of throwing down a challenge to motivate others. Part 4, Be a Leader. How to change people without giving offense or arousing resentment. In this section, Dale Carnegie explores the power of praise and indirect criticism in influencing others. The core idea is that people are more receptive to feedback when it's delivered with sensitivity and understanding. Carnegie emphasizes the importance of beginning with praise and honest appreciation. He illustrates this with the story of President Coolidge, who complimented his secretary before addressing her punctuation errors. This approach, though perhaps a bit obvious, highlights the effectiveness of softening criticism with positive reinforcement. Carnegie shares another example of William McKinley, who skillfully turned down a campaign speech he deemed unsuitable. McKinley's tactful approach, praising the speech's merits while subtly steering the speaker toward a more appropriate direction, demonstrates the art of delivering negative feedback without diminishing enthusiasm. The author dives into a historical example, presenting a letter from Abraham Lincoln to General Joseph Hooker. This letter is a masterclass in indirect criticism. Lincoln acknowledges Hooker's strengths before gently addressing his faults, using phrases like, "There are some things in regard to which I am not quite satisfied with you." This delicate approach, especially crucial during a time of national crisis, underscores the power of diplomacy in leadership. Moving from historical figures to practical business scenarios, Carnegie shares the story of W.P. Gaw of the Work Company. Gaw's encounter with a subcontractor exemplifies the effectiveness of building rapport and offering sincere compliments before addressing a problem. By focusing on the subcontractor's achievements and expertise, Gaw secured the timely delivery of materials without even directly requesting it. Carnegie also shares a story from Dorothy Rubelowski, a branch manager, who successfully helped an employee improve her performance by praising her strengths and then offering guidance on her weaknesses. By expressing confidence in the employee's abilities, Rubelowski fostered a positive learning environment and facilitated improvement. The author provides a simple yet profound technique, the importance of changing the word, but to and when offering feedback. This seemingly small change can significantly impact how the message is received, turning criticism into encouragement. For example, instead of saying, "You did well, but," try saying, "You did well and." This subtle shift frames the feedback in a more positive and constructive light. Carnegie further illustrates this principle with the example of Marge Jacob, who indirectly motivated construction workers to clean up after themselves by praising the cleanliness of the lawn. By focusing on the positive outcome, she encouraged the desired behavior without resorting to direct criticism. The author also shares an example from Master Sergeant Harley Kaiser, who indirectly addressed the issue of haircuts among Army reservists by appealing to their sense of leadership and setting a positive example. By prompting them to reflect on their appearance and its impact on their role as leaders, Kaiser motivated them to comply with regulations without direct confrontation. Carnegie also shares a story, illustrating how Lyman Abbott's wife skillfully guided him to abandon a poorly written sermon by suggesting it would be better suited as an article. Her indirect approach preserved his confidence and led to a more effective sermon. In this section, Dale Carnegie delves into the nuances of human interaction, emphasizing the importance of humility and collaboration over direct criticism and command. One key principle Carnegie highlights is the power of admitting one's own mistakes before addressing the faults of others. Carnegie illustrates this with a personal anecdote about his niece, Josephine. Initially critical of her secretarial skills, Carnegie realized his own shortcomings at a similar age. Instead of reprimanding Josephine directly, he began to preface his feedback by acknowledging his past errors. This approach made Josephine more receptive to criticism and fostered a more positive working relationship. Similarly, e.g., Dilla Stone, an engineer, used this technique to improve his secretary's spelling. Instead of simply pointing out errors, Dilla Stone shared his own struggles with spelling and how he had developed a system to overcome them. By admitting his own imperfections, Dilla Stone encouraged his secretary to improve without causing resentment. The author further emphasizes this point with the example of Prince Bernhard von Bülow and Kaiser Wilhelm II. When the Kaiser made a series of controversial public statements, he wanted von Bülow to take the blame. Recognizing his initial mistake of criticizing the Kaiser, von Bülow skillfully praised the Kaiser's strengths in other areas, particularly his knowledge of science. This act of humility and praise diffused the tension and reaffirmed their relationship. Another crucial principle explored in this section is the art of asking questions instead of giving direct orders. Carnegie shares the story of Owen D. Young, who never issued commands but instead offered suggestions and sought input from his colleagues. This approach empowered individuals, fostered a sense of ownership, and encouraged cooperation. Dan Santarelli, a vocational school teacher, encountered a situation where a student had illegally parked his car, blocking the entrance. While the student was in the wrong, the instructor's abrasive command only created resentment and hostility. Had the instructor approached the situation with a question, the student would likely have cooperated willingly. Ian McDonald, a manufacturing plant manager, faced a seemingly impossible deadline for a large order. Instead of pressuring his employees, he involved them in the problem-solving process by asking for their ideas and suggestions. This collaborative approach not only led to innovative solutions, but also instilled a sense of shared responsibility, ultimately resulting in the successful completion of the order. These anecdotes underscore the effectiveness of humility, praise, and collaboration in fostering positive relationships and influencing others. By admitting our own mistakes, seeking input from others, and empowering individuals, we can create an environment of cooperation, respect, and mutual understanding. In this section, Dale Carnegie explores the profound impact of preserving another person's self-respect and the transformative power of praise. One critical principle highlighted is letting the other person save face. The author illustrates this with the example of Charles Steinmetz at General Electric, who was moved from a department head position to consulting engineer. This allowed the company to address his shortcomings without damaging his pride or losing his valuable expertise. This story emphasizes how crucial it is to consider others' feelings and avoid actions that might hurt their self-esteem. Marshall A. Granger's experience further highlights the importance of tact when letting employees go. Granger shifted from a dismissive approach to one that acknowledged and praised the employees' contributions, making them feel valued even in termination. This considerate method ensured that the departing employees retained a positive view of the firm and were more likely to return when needed. The contrasting anecdotes of Fred Clark and Anna Matzone vividly demonstrate the consequences of fault-finding versus saving face. Clark's story shows how a vice president's aggressive criticism destroyed a supervisor's morale and ultimately led to his departure. In contrast, Matzone's account illustrates how her boss's understanding and support after a significant error not only preserved her dignity, but also motivated her to excel. Carnegie then transitions to the immense impact of praise, drawing a parallel between training animals and guiding people. Just as animals respond to positive reinforcement, people thrive on appreciation and recognition. The author cites examples of Enrico Caruso, Charles Dickens, and H.G. Wells, whose lives were profoundly changed by a few words of praise and encouragement. These stories underscore that praise can unlock hidden potential and inspire individuals to achieve greatness. B.F. Skinner's teachings, emphasizing praise over criticism, are introduced to reinforce the idea that positive reinforcement encourages desirable behaviors while neglect diminishes less favorable ones. John Ringelspaugh's success in transforming his family's communication by focusing on praising his children's improvements, rather than dwelling on their faults, provides a practical application of this principle. Similarly, Keith Roper's approach in recognizing a new employee's exceptional work led to a dramatic improvement in the employee's attitude and dedication. The author makes it clear that sincerity is key. Praise must be genuine and specific to be effective. Empty flattery is easily recognized and rejected. Instead, focusing on genuine improvements and accomplishments makes the praise meaningful and impactful. Dale Carnegie concludes by underscoring the potential to transform people by recognizing and nurturing their hidden talents. Quoting William James, the author reminds us that individuals often operate far below their potential, and that the ability to praise and inspire is a powerful tool for unlocking that potential. This approach is not just about changing people, but about helping them realize their inherent capabilities and achieve their fullest potential. In this section, Dale Carnegie explores the power of giving others a fine reputation to live up to and using encouragement to foster improvement. This principle revolves around the idea that people tend to act in accordance with the expectations placed upon them. By highlighting positive traits and expressing confidence in their abilities, we can inspire individuals to rise to the occasion and exceed their own perceived limitations. An example is illustrated through Henry Hank's interaction with a mechanic whose work had declined. Instead of reprimanding him, Hank reminded him of his past excellence and expressed confidence in his ability to improve. This approach motivated the mechanic to restore his previous performance. Similarly, Georgette Leblanc's compliment to Marie the dishwasher about her hidden treasures led to a transformation in the woman's self-esteem and ultimately altered her life. Another example is Bill Parker, a sales representative who wanted to convince a manager to carry his company's new product line. He appealed to the manager's reputation for being open-minded and willing to listen, which made it difficult for the manager to refuse his request. Likewise, Dr. Martin Fitzhugh praised his charwoman's cleaning, while subtly suggesting she could occasionally polish the cup holders. This approach led to the charwoman exceeding expectations, all without additional time spent. Dale Carnegie emphasizes the importance of encouragement in fostering improvement. Instead of dwelling on mistakes, it is more effective to highlight positive aspects and express faith in a person's ability to learn and grow. This is exemplified by a dance teacher who praised Dale Carnegie's friend's natural sense of rhythm, which motivated him to improve despite his initial lack of skill. Likewise, Lowell Thomas inspired Dale Carnegie to try bridge by assuring him it was easy and aligned with his memory skills. Clarence M. Jones's experience with his son David further underscores the transformative power of encouragement. By focusing on David's strengths and celebrating his progress, Jones helped him overcome his learning difficulties and achieve remarkable academic success. These examples collectively demonstrate that by giving others a fine reputation to live up to and using encouragement to make faults seem easy to correct, we can unlock their potential and inspire them to achieve remarkable things. In this section, Dale Carnegie explores the art of leadership and influencing people by focusing on positive reinforcement and making others feel valued and appreciated. One key principle is beginning with praise and honest appreciation. Instead of immediately pointing out flaws, start by acknowledging the person's strengths or positive aspects of their work. Another crucial point is to call attention to mistakes indirectly. Instead of directly criticizing someone, try asking questions that guide them to recognize their error. For example, instead of saying, "That report was poorly written," you could ask, "What were your goals when you wrote this report?" This encourages self-reflection and avoids defensiveness. Carnegie also emphasizes the importance of talking about your own mistakes before criticizing others. Sharing your own imperfections creates a sense of empathy and makes the other person more receptive to feedback. Instead of lecturing someone on their shortcomings, you could say, "I've made similar mistakes in the past, and here's what I learned from them." Asking questions instead of giving direct orders is another effective technique. This approach empowers individuals and makes them feel like they are part of the decision-making process. Rather than saying, "Clean the stockroom," you could ask, "How do you think we should organize the stockroom to make it more efficient?" Allowing the other person to save face is also essential. When someone makes a mistake, avoid publicly humiliating them or making them feel ashamed. Instead, offer support and guidance in private. This preserves their dignity and encourages them to learn from their errors. Praising even the slightest improvement is a powerful motivator. Acknowledge and appreciate any progress, no matter how small. This reinforces positive behavior and encourages continued growth. For example, if someone is struggling with public speaking, praise their improved eye contact or clearer voice, even if their overall presentation still needs work. Giving someone a fine reputation to live up to can also inspire them to excel. By expressing confidence in their abilities, you can encourage them to rise to the occasion. If you believe someone is capable of more, Let them know that you have high expectations and that you trust them to deliver. Using encouragement and making faults seem easy to correct is another effective strategy. Instead of focusing on the magnitude of the problem, highlight the simplicity of the solution. This instills confidence and motivates individuals to take action. Finally, Dale Carnegie stresses the importance of making the other person happy about doing what you suggest. This involves understanding their needs and desires and framing your request in a way that benefits them. By showing them how they will personally gain from fulfilling your request, you increase their willingness to cooperate.
Hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe.